What's up, y'all? We here with another free bounce interview. We have the amazing Taylor Hudson. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm great, and it's good to have you on here.
Thank you. It feels good having me on. I know we've been talking back and forth trying to get this, done. So it feels good to be here. Thank you.
And we'll start. Let people know who you are. You know where you're from, and yeah, we'll start there.
Well, my name is Taylor, or better known as Tayhdsn. It's just my name is Taylor Hudson. It's just abbreviated, but I'm originally from the Inland Empire way of Los Angeles. That's east of Los Angeles, so that's like an hour out. But yeah, I'm a music appreciator. I've grown up with just a lot of musical influences in my life. And um, I got into DJing back in 2009, 2010, just really seeing all the OG homies doing what they love doing behind the decks, going to events, clubs, and things like that, as 21-year-olds do. And it just captivated me. And it just took over. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's lit. That's lit. And like, how did you get into DJing and getting into that technology and like even like the whole journey of like finding songs and finding records? It takes a lot of effort to like really find. It's like you're almost crafting like your own like palette of music, like a painting. You got all these different
Yes.
songs that you find that's your taste. How'd you get into
Mhm.
that?
Well, like I said, I grew up immersed in a lot of music as a kid. Like I could just remember like my dad, my aunt, his sister, she loved music so much. And every day when we were younger, like if it was after school or if it was summer, there would always be something on, whether it be like back then when you could talk about MTV and VH1 and BET and all those music video shows that they had, or it'd be the radio. Like I was always into it. And I always heard things blended together. And when I got immersed into hanging out with a lot of my OG DJ friends, just connecting with them, just seeing how they captivated a crowd just by playing what they loved playing was something that took effect on me. And when I started getting into DJing, I got a lot of tough love from a lot of my DJ homies about you should teach yourself or you should go take courses because back then there wasn't enough time to give. And I just picked up my computer, downloaded Virtual DJ, and I just started mixing music from my keyboard. And I was doing that for a very long time. It was something for me that was therapeutic at first. It wasn't something to, be seen about or be heard about. It was my own personal outlet. And when we all got locked down during quarantine, I had more time to dedicate to making more music. And I got my first controller and I haven't looked back since. So it's just crazy how things happened a long time ago, but how they progressed into today. And it's just something that I love. It's like I said, if I have like an hour in my day, especially with what I do, like I will take advantage of that and create something just to like get myself going, but also get you guys going. So that's how I got into DJing.
And that's deep. That's lit. That's
Mhm.
lit. But yeah, that's dope. So what are some influences you think you had in your career? Or just like things that influence you or artists or other DJs or things like that.
Yeah. I think what influences me the most artist wise, Prince is like just that everything for me. Like I idolized Prince since I was 6 years old, and just his way of music and his ear for music. Like I can remember just listening to Sign of the Times and thinking like, wow, like this is current. And my mom's like, no, this is like 80s. I'm like, what? So like just being kind of like dumbfounded by that, it got me more into him as an artist. And he really just has that way of presenting funk or R&B or pop, rock and roll on an all in one. And for me, that eclectiveness is something that has always stayed true to me. also culture and fashion. I'm a fashion major, and fashion is a huge connector into music because you think about it, you look at fashion shows now, even like today, like with Balenciaga linking up with who, like Kanye and Playboy Cardi and all that stuff. Like, even though those may be pivotal and influential artists, they set the tone, and you can just envision yourself being in that outfit with that song playing and feeling, confident. So fashion, Prince, Janet Jackson is another influence for me. A Tribe Called Quest, huge influence for me, especially when it comes to hip hop. Um, all of that just intertwined and just kind of helped me to find my niche when it came to playing music. But for me, I love playing all sorts of different type of things. So yeah, those were my influences growing up and still to this day.
So does the fashion matching up with the music that you play over time, does that like all influence you as well?
Well, the fashion, it could, if you could think about it, to give you kind of like more clarity on that. When I was younger, when we all had CD players before we had iPods, I always would steal my parents' CDs. And depending on what that album was, I would always envision a music video. And if I were the director and I shot this music video, how would that look like to a connection to that song or that artist? And the way that I mix music is I like to tell a story, whether it be, I'm feeling happy or if I'm feeling angry or if I'm feeling sad or whatever. All of my mixes pertain to playing a story to whatever. And that's kind of like how it intertwines into fashion. For me, it's really like, if I'm wearing this, how am I feeling? Like, where am I going? What am I about to do? Am I about to turn up? If I'm about to turn up, I want to feel, hype beastie. Because when I think of turn up, I think of, for me, like Travis Scott. It's like one of the people that I turn up to before I go out, or Lil Uzi Vert or whatever. Like, how am I going to match that and be that, for the day? So for me, like, all fashion and music, all of that is culture. So at the end of the day, it all intertwines because we all pick from those people that we're influenced by, if that makes sense. So yeah, like artists, we look up to them in a musicality type of way, but we also look to them on their confidence and how they exude themselves, how they portray themselves. So we pick apart those things as well. So that's kind of how it intertwines for me with my music as well.
That's nice. So who would you say are some of your favorite artists and producers to put in mixes today?
Oh, my favorite artists today. Pharrell's number one. He's been probably the biggest influence production wise since high school for me. Like, I had his solo album on repeat every day. And my mind still to this day gets played every day. So Pharrell was a big and still is a big influence to me. Also, like I said, Prince is another one I still listen to this day. Another person that I've been listening to that's current, I have to say, I've always liked Brent Faiyaz, but with this new album that just came out, I'm probably gonna have to really be on a little bit more. And it's not because of Toxic City; it's just because the musicality, especially with that Neptune feel that he has my attention. Another person that I really like right now, Solange. I love her to death. Beyonce is always gonna be one, but Solange is like it for me. I like a lot of handful of different artists. Tyler the Creator, Timbaland is one of my favorite producers. Jermaine Dupri is one of my favorite producers. Even Neo, one of my favorite producers. Neo doesn't get a lot of credit. Neo's everything. So I like all artists. Like, I truly give attention to all artists because everybody is different. And depending on who I adapt to, I'll stick with that. But music now is always forever changing. There's just so many things that are going on right now. Sometimes it's hard to even keep up. But if it sets a vibe, you know, if it relates to what I love, I usually give it a try. But like my number one favorite producer ever is definitely Pharrell.
It's the balance.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. Hmm. So, what do you look to do? Like, what do you, I guess, what do you look to do as like a big overall like mission message type thing?
What's my overall goal? My
Yeah.
overall mission? My overall mission is to bring communities together. You know, I really believe in therapy. Mental health is really important. And for me, music is what drives me to be mentally healthy. And if I feel that, I want others to feel the same way, no matter what they're going through in life. I really just want them to feel through the music that I have to offer, or even the producers, the artists that I play. I want people to explore that person if they never heard of them before. Even the people that I bring onto my show. That's why my show is called Influential Vibes. You know, it's not just to bring up influential people, but it's also to influence the ear for you to kind of discover what your favorite thing is to listen to, you know? So my main mission in life is just to really bring communities together through music and to really just create positive vibes through it all.
Hey, that's lit. All right. And I'm gonna show people real quick your thing, just your
Yeah.
account. And can you tell me more about Influential Vibes? How'd that come about?
Yeah. Influential vibes. That became an idea, I want to say beginning of actually end of 2020. It was supposed to be a fashion line because I really wanted to have a fashion line called Influential because growing up, I really idolized like a lot of TLC, Aaliyah. I really liked that street but sweet type of flavor that they gave. And I wanted to create that in a fashion line. But music at the time was taking a lot of my attention and my energy that I thought, well, you know what? They're still influential people in some way, whether it be fashion or not. I want to create something where I want to influence people to just be driven to listen to different types of music. It may sound familiar, but it's different to the ear. And I want to inspire people to just really be connected through that music, whoever I bring on as a guest, if they know them, or even if they do, I just want people to feel that vibe. I want people to just really be happy through sound. And this is why Influential Vibes came about.
How do you know what tracks you want to blend? And like, how do you choose your tracks? What's that process of you creating a mix and choosing certain records? How are you creating that mix from start to finish?
So it's almost like digging. Um, I'm usually just sourcing different sounds first when I'm looking for music. Like there's no calculated way of how I'm trying to grab things. It's just based off of how I'm feeling. And I usually like to follow that track's algorithm. Cloud has been around for a long time and it's a part of a really big community of, you know, musical people. But like digging for music on there, even on Bandcamp is cool because their algorithm will lead you into the same people that play or have like-mindedness through that. And usually that's how I start my mixes. It's all just on a feel, but there's always that one song that I want to start off with. And after that, I kind of just get lost in it. I usually don't think about it. I just play.
It's natural. So
being vulnerable with myself is like the number one thing that I do when coming up with a mix, but also when there's vulnerability comes intentions. So if I'm going to be vulnerable and open with my audience, what intention am I setting in my mix? And will people be receptive to understand that or at least get it? And intentions is one of the things that I'm very, very strong about and avid about is just having intentions behind something. So any mix that I do, it really is intentional because it's coming from within. It's coming from the heart. So that's usually kind of like how everything lays after that when I'm mixing something.
they feel what you feel.
Yeah, people feel what I feel. Exactly. And if they relate, then hey, like you're not alone. The main thing is, like I said, through my mixes, it's all about setting a tone and providing therapy and making you happy or whatever the case may be. But it's always intentional.
What would you say are your favorite like pieces of equipment? So is it like
My favorite
either
equipment.
controllers, speakers, headphones? What would you say like the top 3 to 5? Like this is
um
technology that I can't go without.
uh piece of technology that I can't go without. Good question. To be honest, I'll start backwards. I'll start from 5 to 1 or 3 to 1. Um, Number 5 has to be microphone. I don't think that's of an importance only because you got to really like be vocal. Like if you like to be vocal, then that's your thing if it's on the top of the list. I
Mhm.
can talk, but I'm still very shy. So that'll probably be number 5. Number 4 would be I have a MIDI controller and I should be using it, but I'm not like how we go with production, like how it's very hard laying down a melody. But when I do play with it, I'm
Mhm.
always fascinated by like just the different buttons, the keys, and how I can come up with something in that. Number 3 would have to be headphones. Number 2 would
So,
definitely have to be speakers because
which headphones and speakers?
which headphones? I
Which
like Pioneer headphones. Like I've been sticking to Pioneer. They haven't done me wrong. I can hear things clearly when I'm mixing something or when I'm creating something. The sound back is perfect. Um, so for me, like that's like my number third, like number 3 piece of equipment that I can't live without. Speakers. I don't have a brand for speakers. I'm still dabbling with different types of speakers, but speakers are definitely important because I can't tell you how many times you can go to a venue and play an event and you got to make sure that the sound quality is up there. So number 2 would definitely be speakers. Number 1 is my controller. I can do and do without it. I mean, I started not using a controller in the beginning, but number 1 controller is definitely important. Right now, the one that I'm looking at, of course, that's sold out is the XDJ. That one is very hard to get to, but what's nice about it is that, for DJs like me that are aspiring to do more CDJ type of feel sets, like that's a nice controller to have to really, help you be a little bit more diverse in your blending and in your mixing and adapting to if you do play a venue, if they do have CDJs, that's something that you can familiarize yourself with. But that's the number 1 that I'm looking at. So we'll see if we get that when it's not back ordered, but that's definitely number 1. But I love my SBJ, my little controller. It's stuck by me in good and bad times. So yeah.
good thing?
Hmm.
Right. So how do you feel about or what do you think about the change in music from the past like let's say like 40 so going from like the 90s to now and the way how before it was like tubes and it was analog and everything had like a very real feeling to it to an age where now a lot of things are digital, things are being made digitally, and now it's clipping allowed and all other stuff. Like people weren't clipping in like the 90s and 80s and hip hop was not how
No,
they're produced. So it's like, how do
no.
you feel about that change and that evolution of music, and how's that affected the way you see it, or maybe interpret music?
Um, Good question because I get asked this all the time because I get asked more so about do you listen to current artists? Because I play a lot of old school stuff. And I think the reasoning why I play with a lot of oldies is because of the instrumentation behind it. Like in the 90s, a lot of people didn't play with a lot of instrumentation. It was more so going into digital or, you know, beat making or sampling. That was really heavy in the 90s. It still is today. But like I love a lot of classic soul and R&B. So like, Luther Vandross or Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, um, the list can go on and on. You know, Parliament Funkadelic. I'm an advocate for funk music. I love funk music. Slave, all those people, that was live, you know, and live instrumentation and orchestrating just has a more raw sound to it where you can appreciate it because it was intentional, just like how we talked about drawing from emotion. Whoever created that or the process of making that, those people were intentional about that, you know. And now that we're moving more towards a digital age, you know, you got artists like Lucky Day, who I actually really like. He does a lot of like live instrumentation. You got her who does her own spiel. I mean, and she does live instrumentation. So it still intertwines today and what you hear, but now, you know, you got a lot of what do they call it? Lo-fi or analog or whatever that can go on top of it. And it could be a little bit more elevated. Because of course we're not supposed to stay stuck in the times. We have to adapt and we have to evolve and create different things to stay current. But it still ties in together. But for me, I'm always about live instrumentation and music. It just hits different. It truly does.
Yeah, you know, now you got me thinking about hooking up my drum set. I don't use it.
But it does, you know, it's so raw and it's so real, you know, to come up with a melody and then do it on your drum set or do it on your guitar. Like one of my favorite drummers is Sheila E. I love her. And I wish I could play the drums, but if I do one day, that's definitely going to be the influence. But she can just create something just by beating something, you know, at the top of her. It's just so crazy. But live instrumentation is definitely just, it's raw and it's real.
All right, see, I got one. So what was my original question to you? Because what you said was amazing. What I originally asked
you asked me about, oh, who's in the room?
full body.
What's up, bro? You asked me about production, like how does it kind of like bleed into today's current music? Does it like affect it in a way or does it help it? And I think that it helps. Like I said, music has to evolve and we're always going to be inspired and pick apart and pull from different artists that we idolize. Even if you're producing like you or even like full body producers, I'm sure there's people that you guys pull from to create that. Like with even me slowly getting into production, like another person that I didn't mention earlier that's a favorite producer of mine is Teddy Riley. Anybody was close to doing something that kind of sounds current today that involves live instrumentation and digital, it's him, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But that's why it's cool to kind of go back into time to listen to those things and then listening to something now and you're like, that does kind of sound like him, or that does sound like that. Even with Brent Faiyaz's new album, it's like, this is very Neptune's heavy. I'm sure he didn't do the whole album, but even if he did, it sounds like you were inspired by something. Like all of the violins, all of the orchestra, like that's what makes music for me just really raw and current. So it's not to say that I disregard anything that's new. It's just that I have to have that instrumentation. I have to have something in that to really like feel it, especially when it comes to putting it into my mixes.
Okay. And does a changing way that music has been created, like analog versus digital, and live instrumentation and vinyl versus digital, ever challenge the way you mix? Whereas
No.
if you try to, it doesn't. Hey,
no, because I like challenges. I'm a Scorpio, but you give me a challenge, I'm like, what? Let's do this. I'll figure it out. But it doesn't mess up the way that I mix. It just forces me to create something. Because if anybody's listened to my mixes, like what I try to do is I try to play something old and I try to blend that into something new so that it's not making you feel lost, because it could be a song you never heard before that's an oldie, but then until I tie it in with something new, it kind of makes more sense. It's almost like creating a new song through a transition. And for me, like transitions are big because if you're in a setting, wherever you may be, You can't mess up a transition. You can't mess up the blending. It has to flow. So I love challenging myself and really creating transitions that sound like it is the song, but then it turns into totally something different. So the shock factor for me, even within myself, I'll surprise myself like, what did I just do? I didn't even mean to do that. But it just naturally flows that way. So creating like mixes from old versus new is always fun because we're all inspired by somebody. So usually it ends up sounding the same.
All right. And because I've got a lot of questions now. So
It's cool.
what do you look for in a song when, or like I wouldn't say what is it that makes you get into a track? So let's say listen to a song. Is it the like what type of mix is it? Are we type where you like loud wide chords on the side or drums right in the middle, drums on the side, one on the left? Like, let's dig in. Let's dig in. Like, what is it like about tracks in a particular way?
What is it about tracks that I like in particular? It has to be something that sounds nostalgic. Anything that sounds nostalgic to me, I'm like, you got my attention. Where are you gonna go with it? But the drums in any song, the bass is like what really I pay attention to. And especially the breakdown. You're starting it off in some way, but the breakdown in the middle or when you get to the first chorus, or even like in the middle of a song at the end, the breakdowns are always something that I pay attention to. Because if you make a track and you got a good breakdown, I'm like, okay, I can totally blend that and work that in with something else with ease without it being forced. You know what I'm saying? So the breakdown, the bass, it's always important to me in a song. Anything that sounds nostalgic, you got me.
All right. And my last question. I think
All good.
what would you say five modern artists today that let's say you had to make a mix. You can only pick five artists, and they had to
Five
be
artists.
they had to be from the last like 3 to 5 years.
So five artists that I would play today.
Yeah, so like who's new you listening to on the cutting edge? And it's like, oh, I love this. Oh yeah.
That's a good question. I would have to say definitely. I'm always gonna have love for Young Thug. Sad situation he's in, but I'm always gonna have love for him. That's like my trappy phase. If I want to go that, that pathway. Young Thug is number one.
Wait.
Another person
Hold
would
on.
definitely have to be Drake. Did you say hold on?
Yeah, hold on. What's your favorite Young Thug album, project, song?
Favorite Young Thug album was his recent one. What's it called? The one with like the grass in the field. I can't think of it off the top of my head. You're gonna make me search your Apple Music.
No, I'm
I'll be lit because I'm old, but but it is so much fun. So much fun. His last album, I didn't skip tracks. And if I don't skip tracks, I'm into it. And that album was just a little bit different. It was trap. It was still Young Thug with all of the antics and the ad-libs. It was still him, but it sounded like, okay, this sounds like it's about to be this type of summer or it's about to be this type of year. And it still is something that I play to this day. But Young Thug, so much fun. That's like number one album for me. Number two, Drake, of course. I like Drake's album that just came out. I did like Nevermind because I felt like for people like you or people like me or even people like Bull, like he kind of helped to bring that sound that we already are so familiarized with, where I feel that it gives people like us platforms to finally play something as a DJ or make something as a producer. And it's not looked at like, what is that? You know what I mean? So I know there was a lot of controversy behind that album, but if you think about it, that's helping people to elevate. instead of looking at it in a negative context. So Drake is always going to be somebody that I'm going to play. I didn't like his last album. Before that, I didn't really dabble in it, but never mind. I did dabble in it. Another artist that I definitely have to play is Solange. Her last two albums, honestly, those came in times when I needed like mental clarity as a woman. You know, they were both very raw and vulnerable albums, and they just hit different. And, you know, especially her having the sister that she has, you know, she really learned how to separate herself from Beyonce to find her own sound. And that's another artist that uses live instrumentation, but still does things like analog or digital over it, but still it could be captivating. But Solange, she's just somebody that just is, I have to play her. Doesn't matter if it's her original or if somebody flipped it, like she's always going to be in a mix. The fourth person that's current would definitely be Taydsn. You know, I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday about Afro beats and Amapiano, and this person went to Portugal and they went to a festival. Wizkid was there, and how he was so enthralled by all of the Black people that were out there of different cultures, different communities, where they came from, and how it was just so beautiful to see. And it's so beautiful to see how, even though it's been around for so many years here in the States, how it's definitely, you know, hit home with people. And it's almost like our new modern version of reggae, if you want to call it that. But the Afrobeats world is something that I love to dabble in, especially Amapiano, because I love house music. And I had to be corrected because I didn't know that Amapiano was a form of house music from where it originated from. And I'm like, okay, well, it makes sense why I like it. You know what I mean? So Thames and Wizkid and all of those artists are really, really, really putting a map here in the States, and I hope they keep going. But she's definitely somebody that I love to play. Am I on number 5 or I'm number 4? I think I'm on number 5, right?
We'll say 4.
You'll say 4. You see, you cheated. Okay, I'll give you 2 more. Another person that I like to play a lot of that's current, definitely Brent. But I've always been playing Brent. Even before, you know, people were associating Brent when they discovered him with Gold Link. But I'm like, Brent's been around before that. But it's just cool to see, you know, in the SoundCloud community, because I was digging in SoundCloud like 2009, like real early, and to see these artists like him. Doja Cat's not somebody I'm going to name in this particular topic, but even her, just seeing how she's developed, like, it's just cool to see that, you know, you start off from somewhere in the progression and how it goes, and just to see where Brent has came from is just amazing. No toxicity involved. Number 1, who's number 1? That's current. 3-5 years. Usher. Team Usher. Watch this. Usher is always going to be somebody that is a chameleon, and he just adapts so well, you know, into this realm of music that we're driving into. I got the chance to see him perform live, and dude still has it, you know, like he's timeless. And that's somebody that I can still hold on to, that I grew up with, you know, since I was a kid up until my age now, where I can keep playing his music and people will know who that is. So those would be my top 6 that I feel like make 6 artists.
Hey, that was golden. That was golden. You gave it a lot. So
I'll give you one more. Ndwele. I how dare I? Ndwele is another person, and that's it. I'm done.
It's valid. It's valid. Much needed. So, I guess one of my last questions is just, what is something that you want to leave with other creatives? Like a message you want to leave to other creatives, and of all types of people who work in the arts, or just even to DJs?
I would have,
Whatever message you want.
if I have to give any message to creatives, is to keep going. Don't stop. Don't even your own self stop you, because I'm sure there's times where we all get stuck in that rut where we feel defeated, or we're restless, or we're tired, or we feel like maybe we're not doing enough, to where even our own mental starts, making us question our abilities and capabilities in life. But if I had to give any message to creatives, it's to just keep on going and don't stop, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise what you can or cannot do. Because at the end of the day, you're your own entity, you're your own person. You got into this world, whether you be a DJ, you be a producer, you be even a painter. I don't care what type of creativity it is. Keep doing what you love doing, because it brought you there for a reason. You know what I mean? And also to just inspire others through that process, by just really being intentional with what you create. At the end of the day, like I said before, vulnerability of self is very important. And out of that vulnerability and that work that you're doing, what do you want to show me through what you created? And it's not up to how you think people should interpret it. At the end of the day, if you have that confidence to get it out there, that was the biggest hurdle, is getting it out there. So just never give up and keep going, inspiring others is one thing I would have to give creatives.
She said it. She said it first. You inspired me, honestly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You all inspire me. Full inspires me. You inspire me. Everybody inspires me in some way. You know what I mean? And I'm always just a listening ear. I always tell like DJ friends or producer friends, like, if you're not sure about something, send it my way. I will definitely give you an opinion. But most of the time, you guys know you got it. So I'm inspired by all of you guys.
And Full Body, if you got a question, bro, let me know. But yo, Taydsn, clap your hands. She will be here doing a mix soon, guys. So make sure you tap in, tune in, and thank you for coming by.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, wait.